Welcome back to our series on Bach's Orgelbüchlein. And today is the day that's joyful. Der Tag, der ist so freudenreich. One of the Christmas hymns, and one of the ones which is most uniformly happy. Speaks of the birth of Christ, and the whole hymn is uniformly joyful. And obviously the choral prelude reflects that. It's one of the simplest and happiest of the choral preludes in the set. It has the melody straightforwardly across the top, entirely undecorated, except, as very, very often happens, leaps of a third are filled in with a passing note. The left hand has this dum-de-lum-bum-bum pattern repeated every other bar, all the way through, and the pedal is largely a walking bass, mostly quaver scales. Some commentators actually get a bit sniffy about this piece because the texture is so straightforward and so consistent. But I think Bach is making a point there, and the piece doesn't need to be more complicated than it is. So it's true, for example, that the pedals take a rhythmic break at the same time as the melody does, which splits the piece up a little bit, but you can't help enjoying the simple fun of it all. This, by the way, is one of those cases where Bach seriously underestimated the amount of space he was going to need in the manuscript. He allocated it a single page, and a right-hand page at that, so because he never allowed page turns, he couldn't have stolen a bit of room from the next page, even if he'd been willing to forego Vom Himmel hoch. So he ended up writing the last 4 bars in tablature in the bottom margin. So on to performance. Registration-wise, the piece is marked as being 2 manuals and pedals, so we're going to want some kind of solo registration for the melody. That can be almost anything. It could be a trumpet, it could be a mixture, it could be a cornet stop, which is what I'm using here today. The left hand needs to be distinct, but not overbearing, so something bright and light, and the pedals, of course, to match. The articulation is pretty light, especially in the left hand, contrasting with a legato chorale melody. The pedals can be very lightly detached, just to add a little bit of rhythmic impetus to the whole thing. Ornamentation, there isn't any written in. If you remember the episode on ornamentation where we talk about the various reasons for having ornamentation, one of them is to add variety when you repeat a passage, so you could add a little bit of ornamentation in the repeat of the chorale melody. Though I'm choosing not to do so today, but I sometimes do. Otherwise, there isn't a great deal of call for ornamentation. You could, again, have a cadential trill if you particularly wanted to. Tempo is brisk and upbeat. There is nothing in this piece which you could describe as subtlety, and that's not a criticism by any means. It's exactly how it's supposed to be. And the result is that the ideal performance, if you like, has got drive, it's got vigor. Just have fun with it and don't hold anything back.